Bhansali, who is the country manager for India, Tiger Graph. Then we have
I
got Mr. Noah Liot, who is the Director Financial Services, APJ, Tiger Graph. And the most important person for us, Mr. Golok Kumar Simli. He is the CTO, Passport Seva Program, Ministry of External Affairs. So, with this, I would like to welcome you all, and I'll hand over this panel to Kushal, who will be moderating it. And over to you, Kushal. So, take it from here.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Fahim, for introduction, and thank you for giving us this opportunity. Appreciate this. I again welcome Mr. Shimli and Noha for taking time out and joining us here today. Mr. Simli, I'm really excited to have you here because I'm a passport holder, and it's always nice to have, to get connected with people who actually provide that service to you. And trust me, when we look at passport, it's a issue of, it's a matter of pride for us. And thank you for providing this service to us. So before we, proceed with this, I would love to understand. Your vision and how do you see how the work is being done on the passport side, technology and other areas. How do you see this journey?
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Kushal. Let me at the outset thanks Gov Connect and Tiger Graph, for inviting me here. I also kind of greet my co-panelist, Mr. Noah, and other participants who are listening to this discussion and deliberations. Now coming back to Mr. Kushal saying that passport seva program at large, if I see, we have traveled a long journey. The day we started this program in 2007-8, and from there on, if you see, the journey has been kind of a roller coaster journey, and there are a lot of learnings on the way. The beauty of this kind of a mission mode program is this is one of the mission mode program which is the part of National E-Governance Plan of India, which we started in the year 2004-5. I'm fortunate enough to be part of that team who conceptualized e-governance in India. So we have a kind of, as I said, thorough understanding how we have conceptualize e-governance in India at large, and as I said, how we have traveled so far, right from those silo days to consolidation days to automation days. Today we are at a automation days. Rather, I can say that today we are at a disruption stage, right? A program like Passport Seva, a program like GST, and program like income tax, program like railway. There are many examples in government who are at a kind of at a stage which now we are looking for a kind of a next level of citizen experience or masses at large. And when I say next level of citizen experience and masses at large, there are three, four things immediately comes to our mind is how do we deal with this kind of volume when we are dealing with, let's say, 1.2, rather 1.35 to 4 billions of people in India. So one natural questions comes to our mind is how do you deal with this kind of a volume and scale, right? Now, while you are dealing with such kind of volume and scale, the second thing obvious in nature saying that how accurate, how fast, and how transparently you deal with those volume and masses, right? So that second question by default it comes into picture. And when we think of meeting such demand, such volume, such kind of a citizen expectation, less next level of citizen experience, then no, there is no other way to look forward than the technology way, then leveraging the technology to its fullest. And Passport Seva is one of the program where we have proven that. We have proven that beyond doubt. And this is not I am saying, this is my citizens are saying, people like you and other peoples are saying. So this is rightly coming from the horse's mouth. Now, how is that it was possible to kind of unveil this kind of a large program which touches citizens and masses at large, and at every nook and corner. I can give another example, Mr. Kushal, saying that no, when we deal with passport, whether you apply from metros like Delhi or Mumbai, or if some person residing at a remote corner of a village, they have the same experience as far as passport services is concerned. No, so it doesn't make any difference in terms of geography, in terms of demography. Even my Indian diaspora who is living outside the country, because now we have connected Passport Seva program across the globe. No, we have more than 190 embassies and consulate. So every embassy and consulate, whosoever dealing with our Indian diaspora for all passport related services, again they are part of the same platform, same applications, same ecosystem at large, right? And while we are creating or overhauling this kind of a ecosystem or citizen experience, keeping citizen at the center, we had naturally three, four things in mind. The first and foremost thing was, how do we kind of bring in a kind of a platform or digital platform or a technology which guarantee me kind of the kind of no the scale I am looking for, the kind of agility I am looking for, the kind of insights I am looking for. Because many a time where we go wrong is, you have a lot of data to deal with, especially in government. Especially in government, you have a lot of data to deal with, and especially when you are dealing this kind of a citizen services at large. No, the problem what we realized is, no, we are not able to kind of deliver that kind of insights for decision making, that kind of insights and that kind of no kind of a services the citizens are seeking for. And where we are going wrong, because the data we are collecting, the data we are gathering, the data we are storing, we are not able to kind of analyze, not able to make no kind of a detailed insights of it, and then delivering the output, right? And therefore, when we are looking for Passport Seva kind of a program, we always felt that the technology should be leveraged in such a way that every bit of technology there has to be a return on investment, right? Every bit of technology there has to be a citizen empowerment sense. And believe me, in Passport Seva, even my citizens feel really connected to a government ecosystem, even though through technology, through digital means, right? None of my citizens, they feel at any point of time saying that, I am kind of, as I rightly gave an example, even if I am located in a corner of a village, the ministry has thought for me. How do I reach to the ministry? How do I log a complaint to the ministry? And how do ministry react on to that complaint, that grievances, what I am trying to receive from the ministry, right? So there it is very important to note for all of us, saying that when we leverage technology, it has to be made so simple in a sense, so easy in a sense, saying that it is not you and me at the back end, but it is the citizen, it is the user, it is the beneficiary. Are they feeling connected? Are they feeling really empowered through the technology and through the leveraging of digital platform what we are trying to create for? And that is what we have done in Passport Seva. If you ask me, that is what we have done. And that is what even the government vision is all about. If you largely see the government vision today, it is the government, it is the ministry, it is the department, they are looking for a kind of a technology which really citizen feels connected to us. It's not other way, it's not other way. So that is first point I wanted to highlight. The second point I was just trying to touch upon, saying that when we talk about data, many a time we do not know what kind of data we collect, what kind of data we store, and what kind of data we try to kind of do secondary use or primary use. So the point is, we are completely lacking a data strategy. No, and as I no always saying that we must have a data strategy and data governance model when you are trying to deal this kind of a huge volume of data, especially from both sources, your structured data sources and unstructured data sources. If I talk about the structured data source, okay, more or less it is in a format, it is in a mode where you know exactly your data points, right? What data I am getting, what data I am storing, and what is my transactional data, what is my reporting data, what is my archival data. You all know all those structured data set. But when it comes to the unstructured data set, especially tapping into the social media, tapping into other ministries information and data bank, sharing and validating those data into the other ministries, there is the problem. And therefore there you need to have a data strategy and a data governance model to start it. The last thing, while we are talking about creating this kind of a digital platform, having a data strategy, interacting with not only with your citizens and users and beneficiaries, but also your other ministries and government departments, so that you can leverage maximum the potential of the data. But the fact of the life is, no, when you are dealing with this kind of a multiple stakeholders, we must also ensure that your security and privacy concerns are taken care of. No, and when I say security and privacy concern in both sense, when you are trying to create that ecosystem, security has to be intrinsic at each and every layer of the digital foundation, each and every layer of the application you are writing. And in other part, in this next part, when you are dealing with these kind of services to your stakeholders or users and beneficiaries at large, whether security in terms of dealing with your stakeholder and citizens are taken care of, in both sense, security and privacy. So that's how I put it initially, Mr. Kushal. Thank you.
That's yeah, that's really, it's a really good insight about the whole program. And what's exciting here is basically you're not only focusing on passport, you're actually talking about the entire, Ministry of External Affairs, and the coverage across the globe, reach to the all citizens across, country as well as across the globe. And the best part is you are talking about using the data across ministries and see that how do we better the customer, citizen experience. That is one part. And at the same time, ensuring that government can get the insights to make things better for citizens, as well as take care of the governance part. That's very important. So it's really good. Before we proceed with you for the further question, I would love to hear from Noha. Noha, welcome again. We'd love to understand, Noha, what is this graph technology, and how do you see that it's becoming important in today's scenario, especially after hearing from Mr. Simli?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for this introduction. This is very insightful, and I really appreciate being here. So thank you for following that talk today. So graph technology is literally a new way of approaching your data. It's a new paradigm and how you represent your data, and you're no longer at your data point as, for example, rows in a spreadsheet. That's the way normally you could represent your traditional RDBMS, so your traditional data system. You look at actually the entity, and you build a really relationship. You build an holistic view of those entities. So in the graph world, we call them nodes, for example. And those nodes, we build the relationship, the true relationship, and all these data relate to one another. So what does that mean by that? You can think of it, that's the way we as humans think, not computers. So for example, when you think about someone, you don't think as this person as a series of information about that person. You think about, I know this person through this common friend. I met him at that place, and I know he lives in this city. And this is really those connectivity that we represent in graph. And now what does it do? Well, this actually creates an entire new way of approaching data analytics, and especially creating value from your data. So what do we mean by that? Whereas traditional database systems are very good at doing, vertical analytics. So for example, tell me everybody who was born in one city. Great. You cannot do what we call, for example, deep link analytics. So deep link analytics would be, for example, if you know a common person, how likely is it that you know a third person together? or the likely is it that you can find that triangle of relationship where two people know each other and the third person also knows the two other people. That's an example. But you can see, or you can certainly walk those graphs and this data representation in a way that has never been done before. So, for example, if I put that back into the context of governance and what we're talking about here, for example, in terms of the passport office, we talked about problematics such as entity resolution. You could do entity resolution in a completely novel way. You could do entity resolution in a completely novel way because instead of having rule-based or having to process enormous amount of data through machine learning algorithm and just throwing compute at your problem, suddenly because of the data representation, because you are both transactional but also analytical, you can simply do entity resolution based on the commonality, on the connectivity of the different entities, and you can do probabilistic also entity resolution. So you no longer have to look at absolute rules saying if those two persons have the same names, they were born at the same time, surely they're the same person. You can look at, well, if they have the same name, but maybe they were born at different time, but they live at the same address, maybe I can put a weight on all those relationships and find a way to, in an innovative way, to say, well, according to my algorithm, there is an 80% chance that those two people are the same. And maybe there is a fraud attempt. Maybe someone is trying to get a passport under a fake name. Maybe someone is trying to get a passport under someone else's name. So this is where graph actually comes in. It's really a new approach, a new paradigm in terms of both data representation and computation.
Okay, so very very good, insights about this. So Noha, when you typically look at graph, where do you see it is being used? Because databases have been there for a long time. Every company, every government organization has databases as of today, different technologies. Where do you see today graph being used? What type of problems it will solve from a size or use cases per se?
Absolutely. So graph database, we Tiger Graph do graph at scale. So that's first of all something that is important, that you are not limited necessarily by the size of your data. Actually, we embrace that challenge and we try to do graph analytical at scale. That's what we do. So size is something that has been approached with Tiger Graph from the original architecture and since the inception of the company. We knew we had to do it at scale in order to do it correctly, to tackle global use cases, and especially, for example, in the case of governments, the data scale is always a challenge, as it was mentioned. Especially if you go to for example, the Indian subcontinent, you tackle immediately 1.4 billion people. You're gonna have enormous amount of data, and you're gonna have challenges just by the sheer size of it, without even going into analytical world. Just processing and storage of that data is going to be a challenge, right? So that's one thing. So where it's been used? Well, it's been used in many, many different industries. It's been used in telco. It's been used in finance, where my specialty lies. It's been used for supply chain analytics. It's been used in compliance. It's been used in pharmaceutical, healthcare. So really, because it's a new way of processing data and it's a new way of running analytics, there is really not a single industry that can tell, oh, I don't have a graph use case. And actually, Gartner has said that by 2025, 80% of all analytics will be graph-based. So this is a key important factor, because graph is coming to you. This is just happening. And this is coming to you because the way you represent the data is so much more natural compared to the way we traditionally store data, that the analytics actually almost comes out of the box. So for example, you can do things like community detection. You can do similarity detection. You can start identifying, for example, group of citizens, in the case of a governmental approach, that are behaving similarly, and communities inside those group of citizens based on where they're from, certainly, but also who they interact with, what applications they do officially, what, for example, administration process they do. And you can also take them on a journey and understand their journey in life. Like they got married, they got kids, and everything like that. Everything that the government care about in terms of, for example, your identity and who you are. And this opens the door to, I think, something that could be very interesting to discuss, which is your digital identity. And I would like to ask, for example, in the case of Mr. Simili, where is India seeing this going in terms of the digital identity? So I will give you an example. I am currently based in Singapore, and in Singapore, we use an application called SingPass. And this basically application is your digital identity. So wherever you go to a governmental office or wherever you go to open a bank account or wherever you go to apply for a passport, you can use that application to actually confirm your identity and prove your identity. And all your information gets centralized in terms of your tax, in terms of your, for example, in my case, I'm a foreigner over there, so my immigration status and my visa and all this information get grouped. So I would like to engage and ask you, where do you see this going and how do you think in terms of digital identity for the future?
So no, I'll quickly add to this, and then Mr. Shimli can definitely, he works on a larger scale on that, he can add. So we have something called Aadhaar, which is a unique identity mechanism here. Not all citizens are right now having that, but yeah, the target is to bring everybody under that. So it's a huge country, you know that. So but I think we are coverage is increasing and increasing, and a lot of services right now, whether it is vaccination, whether it is public distribution system, public welfare schemes, a lot of banks, a lot of income tax related stuff, that particular identity is being used as a KYC stuff. And Mr. Shimli can add more to that, how they are actually using it for passport, and how do they see the data from other organizations and other government ministries coming to passport, and passport data going to other ministry, how they share the insights, and what do they use for, what technology they use for those insights.
No, I think thank you, Mr. Kushal. I must thank Mr. Noha. He has very rightly touched upon many of the points which we are already doing in passport. For an example, entity analytics, entity resolutions, as per se. I can straight away quote some of the examples saying that, let's say a citizen apply for a passport today in the name of, let's say, Golok. Tomorrow the same citizen try to reproduce all his or her documents in the name of Golak, Golak. Today he applied as Golok, Golok, right? Another example I can give, saying that a citizen saying that no, he is today applying as Muhammad, let's say Nakib, MD Muhammad and NAKIB Nakib. Tomorrow he is writing the full Muhammad, MOHAAD and Naki, right? Or similarly, let's say Mr. Ram Mohan. Okay. See, today he is writing Ram Mohan as one name, RAMMOHAN. Tomorrow he breaks up the name Ram space Mohan, right? So many cases we are getting every day, no? And the beauty is the kind of correlation engine we have set up, the kind of entity analytics tool we have set up, the kind of algorithm I'm running based on Soundex, phonetics, and various kind of HX. Now we are exactly able to catch those matches. Now where the actually citizen is trying to manipulate and kind of mislead the system, right? So, but no, I really appreciate saying that we need more and more sophisticated tools and technology which can help us to establish this kind of a correlations, which can help us to establish this kind of a connected intelligence flowing from each databases. I always say that there has to be a connected intelligence flowing from each of these government databases, so that wherever I go as a Golok, I need not required to prove myself that Golok is Golok, right? If I'm applying passport today, that is what probably Nora is trying to bring out, saying that why is that I can't carry a digital identity whenever I seek for any government services per se? Why is that every time I need to prove that I am Golok? Why is that it is needed? It is absolutely not needed, right? And that is one of the direction government is very much working on, that direction. How do we create a digital identity for each of the resident, each of the citizen of India, right? And probably the Aadhaar way will prove us to establish that digital identity for all of us, so that tomorrow we don't have to every time fill up your name, father name, mother name, so and so forth. It is not about from the citizen side, from the other side also, from the department side of I exactly know that this person is the same person. There is no identity theft, or there is no identity ghost which is trying to avail one's services or trying to get some benefit from here and there, right? If we can omit that kind of a ghost, if we can omit that kind of a identity theft, I think one of the biggest thing we will achieve any services, name it any services. And that is why government is working on two directions. One is on the establishing of a digital identity based on the Aadhaar kind of a platform. The second is in terms of document repository, because how do I prove myself saying that I am Golok based on some documentary evidences? Or how do Mr. Kosal prove that Kosal is Kosal based on again some documentary evidences, right? Or Mr. Noha, how do Noha proves that I am Noha? Again based on some documentary evidences, right? Now, when it comes to this document repository, document validation, document authentication, again government is coming up with another very big platform called DigiLocker. So today, if let's say Mr. Kausal apply for a passport services and Mr. Kausal produce Aadhaar as a document, I need to establish two things for Mr. Kausal, saying that one is Mr. Kausal is Kausal, there is no identity theft. But at the same time, I also need to prove that the Mr. Kausal providing two, three documents saying that these are my documentary evidence for date of birth, these are my documentary evidence for address, these are the documentary evidence for my so and so forth. How do I prove them? And I need to prove them by hitting into the source database. And therefore, the DigiLocker kind of a platform, every government department per se, or every banks or commercial organization per se, whoever is seeking a service for that particular department or from that particular ministry, that ministry will actually hit to the DigiLocker, and DigiLocker in turn will hit to the respective source database and give it back to me saying that okay, this document submitted by this Mr. Kosal is perfectly fine. And in fact today I am doing that. So if you apply for a passport, you need not carry all those original documents to the passport office. Simply give me the DigiLocker link. I'll hit to the DigiLocker. DigiLocker will hit to the source database, and your job is done. So that's already we are working. That's why we are already working. So the idea is how do we create that we call platform of platform, right? And these platform of platform, whether it is DigiLocker, whether it is Aadhaar as a platform of platform, whether it is a UPI as a payment gateway platform of platform, government of India is working on those directions so that citizen every time do not have to carry all those bunch of documents. Citizen do not have to every time prove his digital or her digital identity. Citizen do not have to know every time kind of a look for some other means to avail a service, no. So those things will anyway go away, and I think India as a country, government at large working at maximum, I can say, and at a highest speed, right? The second point which probably Noah was trying to bring out is about the how do we create this kind of a synergy? How do we create this kind of a connected intelligence among us? How do we create a collaborative environment among us, right? And there I feel there are two kind of a way forward when it comes. One is while we are trying to create some sort of synergy, some sort of a collaborative environment, some sort of a connected intelligence flowing among us, uh, two very important factors we have to keep in mind is one is we must have an environment of digital ethics. We must have an environment of a trusted data ecosystem, and we also must have an environment of trusted data flow, right? If we can create these three environment, among ourselves, and then taking care of technology into fora, various tools and other advanced technologies coming into picture, probably we can create an environment where you will see that as I know, I am saying always saying that it is not you and me, but citizens at large. They will feel that no, whether I go to External Affairs Ministry or let's say Income Tax or GSTN, everywhere there is a seamless service. No, everywhere there is no if and but. Everywhere I don't have to fight for my own rights, which is I am entitled for, whether it is a schemes, whether it is a benefit, whether it is a government services, right? The second thing, no, when we are talking about creating this kind of a ecosystem, creating this kind of a larger ecosystem for the masses and beneficiaries at large, I always feel that it is no more a government alone, right? It
Correct.
has to be it has to be a industry participated
Correct.
more. It has to be no, we need to innovate various kind of business models
Correct.
where both industry and government has a kind of a win-win scenario for both of us to create this kind of a beneficiary system for the our masses at large. And passport seva is one of the example I can very well quote here, saying that here is a ministry, here is a department where no in terms of technology, in terms of manpower, in terms of holistic visibility, which Noah was trying to brought out, in terms of transparency, in terms of creating a overall kind of a ecosystem for every one of us, whether it is a my own stakeholder, whether my own ministry, whether citizens at large. Uh, this was only successful because of two facts. One is we could innovate a new business model. We can take through a industry participative mode, and the best part is while we are doing this, uh, this was there was always on the back of the mind that no, it is not the department or the ministry, it is the citizen. Can my citizen feel empowered? Can my citizen feel connected to a government ecosystem? Can the citizen on the horse's mouth say that no, this is the ministry, this is the department which looks after me? No, it is not other way, saying that I am always following with you, I'm always looking for something or other. No, it is other way. It is we
Correct.
follow the citizen. It is we reach to the citizen, saying that the day you apply for a passport, it is the other way. It is ministry start following the citizen. So that's
Correct.
how we I believe,
Yeah,
Mr.
I echo that, and let me tell you, I did first passport around 15 years back, and the other one around 5 6 years back, and let me tell you, the experience was very very different, and the amount of time first time I took outside the passport office and total time taken in the second passport was like hardly anything. I can't believe when I got out and my passport was there. So let me tell you, this is working very fine, and I'm really excited when my passport goes for the second renewal. I want to see what better things are happening, and I'm
Yeah.
sure looking at you and hearing from you, I'm sure there is something in for surprise for us. We are sure of that.
I
So thank you very much for your time and the insights on this. Noah, you would like to add anything where very quickly any governments you think using graph and getting benefit out of that? I
Oh,
understand we Mr. Sivli said that they are using technology right now, but any specific government use case quickly in 1 minute? We are already late. Fahim
yes.
is
So very quickly, in 1 minute, the Australian tax office, for example, uses us to actually do deep link analysis and investigation in terms of tax evasions and tax fraud. So this is, for example, a very concrete governmental use case of the use of our technology, to actually find fraudsters and retrieve and bring back to the country funds that have been siphoned out of the country. So yeah,
fantastic.
uh,
So,
thank you
so
very
you,
much.
yeah, yeah, I hear you
No,
from.
I'd love to listen more from on the graph technology from Mr. Kushal and
Yep,
Mr. Noah. So I'll be happy to know more on that.
we'll do that.
Maybe no, next week sometime we can
Sure,
keep in touch.
sure, sir. We'll
So
do
I
that, sir.
thanks again once again Gov Connect and Tiger Graph for being.
thank
It's
you.
our pleasure, sir. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you very
Shimli.
Thank
Thank
much.
you.
you, and thank
Thank
you,
you, sir.
Fahim,
Thank you,
for giving
Mr.
us this.
Thank you, Golok, sir. It's always an honor to have you on our platform, and you have been there with us for many years now. You have been here with at our conferences, It was like it was like doing some great sessions actually. And this was one of the fireside chat, I think so. It's like I was not willing to say that it's like this is time now. Let's close it. Right. It was so interesting, and Khushal, you moderated it very well. And Noah and Simli sir, your insights was really like it was really great. I think so. The audience who will be listening to this will really have something to take away from this fireside chat. Right. So with this, I would like to thank you all. Thank you, Simliji. Thank you, Noah. Thank you, Khushal, for your time and for this amazing session. Thank you all.
Thank
Same here.
you.
Thanks a
Thank you,
lot.
everyone.
Thank you so much.